We are Team 11, and our presentation is on the evolution of skin color. Skin color. We know it varies all around the world, but how does it really work? Let's dive deeper into that with a little video.
To see what gives skin its color, we need to focus on the outermost layer, the epidermis, and two important cell types, keratinocytes and melanocytes. The keratinocytes are the cells that form the surface of the skin and are on the front line for taking insults from the environment. Deeper down in the epidermis, right at the base of the layer, we find the melanocytes. These star-shaped cells produce the important pigment melanin. Let's zoom inside a melanocyte to see how this works. Melanin is produced inside what look like spheres throughout the melanocyte. These are the melanosomes. Chemical reactions inside melanosomes turn the amino acid tyrosine into melanin. The proportion of two main forms of melanin produced, a reddish-yellow type versus a black-brown type, the total amount of melanin in each melanosome, and the number of melanosomes in the epidermis all vary from person to person.
Now that we've learned a little bit about how skin color works, let's get into the basics of how this trait developed. When, about 50,000 years ago, scientists were able to track the mitochondrial DNA of non-African founding groups to about 45,000 years ago, and this gets into the where. The development of lighter skin began in modern-day Europe. Early humans were able to cross the Red Sea out of Africa into Europe thanks to the lower sea levels. Who? Early humans, Homo sapiens. While other species like Homo erectus and Neanderthals had different skin tones between the species, it was Homo sapiens that developed this trait across their species. Why? Well, because of their migration, and also because humans evolved less hair and more sweat glands to stay cool. This left their skin more susceptible to UV radiation, but UV is also important to provide vitamin D to humans. So this leads into the how, like we discussed in the video. The amount of melanin in people's skin began to change depending on the area they lived in. Melanin is a pigment that protects from UV, but areas with less radiation need to have less melanin to still be able to absorb enough vitamin D from the sun.
To first discuss how the evolution of skin color came to be, we must talk about the selection pressures for it. So, to start, we must understand that skin color is a polyphyletic trait, meaning that it is found in many species that do not share a common ancestor, such as humans and amphibians. However, in the case of just looking at humans, it is a monophyletic trait, as our ancestors do not have skin color to the level that humans do, as they have fur. The primary selection pressure is the sun and UV energy. Those living at the equator developed higher melanin protection threshold as they were able to survive and reproduce better due to being protected from diseases such as melanoma. Then, as humans moved away from the equator, those with lighter skin were favored. Lighter skin allows for more UVB light absorption, which results in a higher vitamin D production, which is very helpful. And this graphic just shows the way that humans were migrating away from the equator and how those in those more northern areas were those with lighter skin. However, there are many benefits and costs to both light and dark skin. Starting off with light skin, it allows for easier production of vitamin D, which is great, but it provides significantly less protection from the UV rays, resulting in a higher chance of melanoma if you are in a high UV area. Dark skin allows for protection from UV rays and significantly reduces chances of melanoma by acting as a sort of natural sunscreen. However, it does not allow for great vitamin D production, meaning vitamin D must be sought out elsewhere. And this graphic represents the general skin color pattern we see on a global scale. Notice that this follows what has been said before, with dark skin being near the equator and lighter skin being further from the equator.
Origins and variations. In regions with higher UV radiation, dark skin provides protection against its harmful effects, while in areas with lower UV radiation, light skin allows for enhanced vitamin D synthesis. This shows the adaptability of the trait to diverse environmental conditions. The distribution of skin color in human populations is influenced by selective pressures driven by environmental factors. The trait of skin color is not conserved across populations, as different groups have adapted uniquely to varying levels of UV radiation. Factors including environmental pressures and human migration are probable factors that led to evolution of skin color. The picture on the right shows how UV distribution aligns with skin color distribution. Hot pink areas correlate with darker skin, while colors like blue or gray correlate with lighter skin tones. What other traits needed to change so that this trait can become adaptive? Intense UV rays in equatorial areas triggers light-sensitive receptors called rhodospins, which will lead to dark skin, which provides protection, which meant that melanin production, synthesis, and distribution most likely evolved. Regions with lower UV radiation leads to light skin, which allows for more vitamin D synthesis, which is vital for other vitamin absorptions, including calcium and magnesium. This led to maintaining bone density and a healthy immune system. Heating mechanisms such as sweat efficiency led to thermoregulation. Tannable skin evolved to adapt to high UVB rays. The image on the right shows the levels of human skin in which different UV rays can penetrate. Skin color amongst different lineages. Humans display variations in skin color across geographical regions due to ancestral adaptations to varying levels of UV radiation. The evolution of depigmented and tannable skin occurred multiple times in hominin evolution through independent and genetic pathways under positive selection. In Homo sapiens, skin color evolution took place at least 2 or 3 times, while for Neanderthals, it occurred once. Around 50,000 years ago in Africa, the first taxonomic group emerged. Evidence of natural selection shaping these traits is visible in the genome. The MC1R gene is responsible for encoding a protein crucial to eumelanin production and likely played a role in this adaptive process. Other pre-adaptations that favored the evolution of this particular trait include types of melanin production, amount of melanin production, number of melanin production, genetic variation, and temperature regulation. Advantages and niches. Skin color variations in humans contribute to thermoregulation, which enables adaptations to a variety of climates through mechanisms of heat absorption and reflection. Cultural practices may associate skin color with social identities, status, and mating preferences. While the presence of dark skin provides UV protection, this allows habitation in regions with high radiation and reducing the risk of skin diseases such as cancer.
On to the experiments used. We found that the extremes of human skin pigmentation were found to have evolved under extreme environmental UVB and were also influenced by vitamin D-rich diets. Human skin pigmentation has also been modified based on population genetics and based on cultural processes of selection. We also found that a genome-wide study identified the skin pigmentation clusters in 4 genomic regions within the continent of Africa, mostly based on latitude and population dispersion. Things we found interesting or were surprised by. In 2000, it was found that dark skin pigmentation in humans had evolved mainly to prevent infertility. We were also surprised to find that dinosaurs may have suffered from rickets due to vitamin D deficiency from the asteroid impact, which led them to have malformed and weakened bones. Another thing that surprised us was that human populations likely evolved their skin pigmentation over as few as 100 generations, which approximately would take up to 10,000 to 20,000 years. We were also surprised to find that skin color has been one of the most important physical features to define human groups. So much so that Charles Darwin rejected the idea that physical differences like skin color were considered as the basis for distinguishing human species. It was also interesting to learn that Darwin's focuses on sexual selection and human variation seems to be very inconsistent with his views on other organisms, as he didn't want to connect natural selection with human variation in order to deflect criticism of natural selection and also to encourage that human evolution as being due to human preferences rather than shaped by natural forces around us.
What have we learned so far? There are 3 layers in the skin: epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Epidermis is the outer layer. It contains melanin that determines the color of your skin and hair. It divides into 2 different cell groups. Keratinocytes is on the upper level. They are the first-line soldiers protecting skin from harm. Melanocytes are the baseline of epidermis, and inside, the melanosomes produce the polymers called melanin. Melanin divides into 2 different types. Black or brown pigments are called eumelanin. Red or yellow pigments are called pheomelanin. Melanin gets delivered to the upper layer by amino acids called tyrosine, so it's visible. Melanin covers and surrounds keratinocyte like a hat. Why? Because melanin absorbs and reduces the UV energy, so it doesn't reach nucleus and DNA, causing mutations that could lead to cancer, like melanoma. As humans disperse outside of the tropics, they experience different intensities and seasonal mixtures of UVA and B, creating two taxon groups. Primary adaptation happened to protect folate, which are important red blood cells. High UVR near the equator led to dark, photoprotective eumelanin-rich pigments. Depigmented, aka lighter skin, evolved so the absorbed UVB photons can sustain more vitamin D where UVB is low. Secondary adaptation was influenced by variations in vitamin D absorption. Populations may have developed genetic variations in response to their different metabolic and environmental conditions, allowing for stronger immune system and bone strength to prevent diseases like rickets. People often overlook the impact of their evolutionary fitness when they migrate to live somewhere else. Given they face different selective pressures, integrating dietary antioxidants as supplements is a very important strategy. It will neutralize harmful molecules within the body and reduce oxidative stress. Also, important to remember, not all migration happened voluntarily. For hundreds of years, due to colonialism, more than 12 million people were placed into different regions. So, by the end of this lecture, we all now know that evidence shows all humans were dark-skinned about 1.2 million years ago. Different skin colors developed after the loss of heavy body hair. Skin color varied due to different cultural traditions, variances in the survival of phenotypes, and different geographical isolations. Best examples of natural selection on humans is right on your skin. History of our species is written on our skin pigment.
And here were our references and primary sources. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed.